Hello, fellow book lovers, both readers and writers. I am Matty Dalrymple. I write the Ann Kinnear Suspense Novels and Suspense Shorts and the Lizzy Ballard Thrillers. And I also write, speak, consult, and podcast on the writing craft and the publishing voyage as the indie author. And you can find out more about me at mattydalrymple.com and at theindyauthor.com. And this is my video series, What I Learned, where I ask authors 2 questions related to their latest book. What did they learn from their latest book that they would like to share with their fellow authors? And what did they learn from their latest book that they'd like to share with their fellow readers? And today I am here with Mary Carroll Moore. Hey, Mary, how are you doing? So to give our listeners a little more background on you, Mary Carroll Moore is the author of 14 books in 3 genres, former food columnist with the LA Times Syndicate, writing teacher, and author of Your Book Starts Here on Storyboarding Your Book. And her latest book is A Woman's Guide to Search and Rescue, which I have to say has a gorgeous cover, as viewers can see there. Any book that has an airplane on it is good with me. And so I was very intrigued by that cover. And so today I'm getting a chance to ask Mary the 2 What I Learned questions about A Woman's Guide to Search and Rescue, starting with what did you learn that you'd like to share with your fellow authors?
Well, I learned courage and persistence, I think. Big words. The courage was about writing a topic that I was not familiar with. My mom was a war hero, believe it or not, as a pilot. She was a pilot in the war in World War II.
Oh, wow.
And I always wanted to write a book about women pilots, but I have no experience with flying. I finally took my first flying lessons last week. My mom always promised she'd teach me, but she never got to it because she was, 4 kids and a full-time job. So I had to go outside the box to learn how to write about flying, especially since the first scene in the book is a small plane crash where the pilot walks away uninjured. And I had to kind of corral a group of people to help me with this. I had 3 flight instructors form a cohort to brainstorm how this could possibly happen, that the pilot would walk away and be okay in this narrow gorge when she crashes at the beginning of winter in the mountains. So that was like really courageous for me to write about a topic that I really didn't know very well. But since then, and actually since the books come out in pre-orders, I've gotten a lot of people who are interested in flying, and especially women pilots, tell me that this is fabulous. What a great topic. It really celebrates the heroism of women. And I feel kind of like a hero myself for venturing into that.
Yeah, I took flying lessons for quite a while, and I never got my pilot's license for reasons that are we would burn through much of our 15 minutes if I were to go into it. But I'm a huge aviation nerd, and any of that kind of stuff fascinates me, that kind of research.
Oh, me too. And when my mom was, when I was little, she'd take us on planes and she'd sit there in the passenger seats in the back of the plane and mutter instructions to the pilot up in the cockpit. And she said she always wanted to fly with us because if something happened to the pilot, she could take over the plane. And I thought, wow, so that has been my legacy as a writer, to have this beautiful history in my background and to try to figure out how to bring it into a fictional story. But it took a lot of courage to be able to, you know, face a story that I personally hadn't lived and really make it authentic, to the point now where people who are aviators read the book and, as some people have gotten advanced copies, and they say, this is so right. Everything is correct. All of the things are right. And I thought, oh, what a relief. But that was a really big part of my courage journey with this book.
It's interesting because I think a lot of writers will sympathize with the idea of being a little uncomfortable writing about something that you haven't experienced. Because we have people writing murder mysteries who haven't murdered anyone and so on. But
Right.
somehow the mechanics of writing a book about flying and a plane crash and all that just adds another layer of complexity. What was your biggest resources for making sure you got that right?
Well, my mom was too old at that point to really contribute. And she had flown B-29s and Spitfires and those kinds of planes, which are really different from the small planes that are available today. But there was a fellow up in the Adirondack Mountains, where my book takes place, up in the Adirondack Mountains of New York State. And he took me flying. And he had a little I think it was a 1946 Cessna that he had rebuilt. It was bright yellow. It had cloth wings, and he took me up over the mountains to give me a taste of what it would be like to be up there in that kind of plane, because that's similar to the plane that this narrator decides to fly away from the crime that she's framed for. She's framed for an attack on her manager. She's an indie musician, and she escapes by stealing his plane. And so, I had to get up in a small plane and find out what it was like. And he helped me a lot. And then this cohort of flying instructors, they were actually from Phoenix. One of them was in one of my writing classes, and she was just like an invaluable resource for a whole year. I'd send her chapters and scenes, and I'd say, Sylvia, would you check this for every part of it and make sure everything I say is correct? And then she'd rework the technology a little bit to make sure that it was accurate. So I felt more and more confident as I went along that this was going to be okay. And I could actually do my mom this honor by writing about women pilots in a way that was logical and believable.
Yeah. Yeah, I had for a brief time, I was the owner of a 1946 Stinson Voyager,
Wow.
4-seater high wing airplane. And it shows up in my Ann Kinnear books. And, but I had sold it. By the time I wrote that book, I had sold it. And so I was in touch with the people who had bought it and say, can you remind me of this? Can you remind me of that? Can you send me a picture? And after I put my book out, I had described the panel as being, I think, stainless. And then he said, well, it's actually aluminum. Or vice versa. I can't remember now, but it is the devil's in the details, because that was something that didn't even occur to me to ask about.
Oh,
But
yeah.
so fun.
It is. It's such a great thing when you find something that really stirs you inside and you want to write about it. Like flying has always been a passion of mine. And finally now I'm taking lessons, which is so fun,
Yeah.
in a little Cessna Aerobat. So I'm having a great time with it, but it's a new adventure.
Yeah. Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
Let's get together and have beers and talk about this some
And
more.
talk about flying. I know.
Talk about flying. Yeah. So fun.
I probably learned a lot from you, Maddie.
Well, I don't know. It's funny because I cribbed a lot from my own experience. There's this one part where my protagonist, Ann Kinnear, is having a flying lesson, and the whole conversation with her flying instructor is like verbatim taken from conversations I had with my flying instructor. I'm like, I bet he never knows that he's like featured in one of my books.
He contributed. Yeah.
Yes, he did contribute very much.
That's great.
So we've been talking a little bit about what you learned for A Woman's Guide to Search and Rescue that you would like to share with your fellow authors. So talk a little bit about what you'd like to share with your fellow readers.
Well, I was, first of all, let's see how to say this. I'd written a book that was a literary fiction. It was character-based. And my agent said, you have to go and find a way to make this more tense. And so I went to a thriller writer and I studied with him for a period of about a year. And I brought in the thriller aspects. So now I have a literary thriller. And I really wanted the reader to engage in it as a fast-paced read that stays with them for days after they finish. That's the kind of thing that I hope for. But I also hope that readers will think about this idea of found family, because the narrator who is in the plane crash is looking for her estranged sister. And it's all about that tribe that you may not have been born into, but becomes the core support of your life, because their reunion happens when she is in crisis and they actually save each other. So I would like the reader to kind of think about that. Who are the people in their life right now who might be found family? And what do they contribute that no one else does? So maybe they'll look at their own relationships of blood or friendship ties in a new, hopeful light and bring, I hate to say it, it sounds sentimental, but bring a new measure of compassion and understanding where maybe not much exists. Right now in this world, I feel like a realistic hope is very needed and important. So I'd like to say to the reader, I hope this leaves you with a sense of hope, most of all. Maybe hope that forgiveness can happen among estranged people, and hope that past wounds can be re-examined for potential of healing or at least acceptance. Because all the relationships in this story were broken at the start, and they all came together in believable ways to be healed. Because if you're writing about pilots, and two of my main characters are pilots like to run, they like to escape. They have the vehicle for it and everything. And to stay around and actually be strong in a relationship was challenging for both of these women. So I'd like to leave the reader with the hope that that can happen. Relationships can be healed, circumvent estrangement, or heal it. So I hope that doesn't sound too hallmarky, but that's kind of where I've come to at the end of my journey with this book.
Yeah. Was there anything going on in your life? You talked a little bit about what the inspiration was for having a female pilot character. Anything that you'd like to share in your own life that led you to want to share that lesson that you just
Yeah,
described?
it's a kind of hard journey. My older sister, who I idolized, she was 8 years older than me, and she was just beautiful, model quality beauty and just a wonderful person. She died early in her life. She was an addict and she died. And it was just heartbreaking for the family and for me to not be able to get close to her and not be able to do anything about it. And at the end, after she died, I spent a long time thinking about how much she meant to me and how I would never get to really tell her that or repair the relationship. There's not a lot you can do with addiction, especially if the other person isn't willing to move on and heal it. So I wanted to create a story about sisters that were estranged that did heal. And so it was kind of my way of honoring my sister and my mother during this book with the two aspects of the pilots and the sisters coming together. The literary fiction, two genres coming together.
Yeah. That's fascinating. I appreciate you sharing that story. And
Yeah.
I'm so fascinated by I was fascinated by the cover, and now I'm even more fascinated now that I've gotten to learn a little bit more about what the book is about. So, Mary, congratulations on, it
Thank
sounds
you.
like, you achieved what you were going after with that book. Please let our listeners know where they can find out more about you and your book and everything you do online.
Well, I have a website, and you can see from how to spell my name how to get there. It's marycarrollmoore.com, Mary, two R's, two L's, two O's in the last name. And in there, you'll find a lot about my history and also my dedication to my mom, the pilot aspect of my book, the story behind that. And also, you can pre order or order the book online and it's available at all the bookstores. It's also available in audiobook now and in ebooks. So I'm very happy about that.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much. It's been so lovely talking to you.
Me too. Keep flying.
Thank you. And good luck with your flying adventures as well.
Thank you.